I'm Calvin Austin III, wide receiver for the University of Memphis.
It's Anthony Sane for Sports 66 Mornings.
This is Rodney Williams, tight end for the Denver Broncos.
This is Tommy Hayes.
This is EJ Manuel, and you're listening to No Cap Sports.
With No Cap Sports.
And the No Cap Sports.
No Cap Sports, three of the hardest grinding brothers in the business.
Welcome to another episode, No Cap Sports. I got a very special interview today. One of my favorite coaches of all time, my guy, Coach York. So, Coach, just start off, how's your summer been so far?
It's been good. I just got back from family vacation. Took my wife and my two boys, and then my mom and dad. We all went to Disney World for 2 days. It was so hot. It was so hot. It was, I think the first day when we were at Magic Kingdom, it was like 101.
Yeah.
And then the second day wasn't as bad. It was only like 93, but the humidity was
crazy.
Awful.
Yeah.
And I woke up got out of the hotel room, and I started to sweat immediately. And I think that the drops of sweat that I had at 7 a.m. were still there at 7 p.m. Just never evaporated, just sticky, nasty.
Real. Yeah.
But other than that, it was good. Got to do that. So and I always try and partner that with there's a big O-line, D-line camp in South Florida that I do every year. About 400 or 500 kids there usually every year. It's really fun that I go work that. So I usually take my kids down, drop them off with my mom and dad for a week. I go work the camp for a week, then my wife comes down and we try to do some type of vacation a little bit. So it was good though. Glad to be back in the office.
Yeah.
Felt like the longer you're away, the more everything piles up. So I was definitely happy to be back.
Yeah, I understand. So talking about Florida, I know you Florida born, all of that. So just looking at Florida just from a football standpoint, it's always been a recruiting hotbed, all of that. So you actually played in it. So what was that environment like? Just growing up in Florida and you know what I'm saying, being a player, being young.
It was crazy. When I think about the state of Florida, we always talk about it. Linemen aren't usually the big need down there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just not a huge thing, but the skill is. And what I've always seen with Florida kids, and I really figured it out more when I started recruiting Florida kids, but it made sense because I think back to whenever I played, a lot of times when you're being coached at the level of coaching in Florida, for the most part, now there's always outliers, but for the most part, it's very subpar, I'll say. Yeah. So it's a lot of guys that are just athletes and just trying to be the best they can. But it's usually most of the really good spots are underprivileged. One of the areas I grew up in at Pahokee, Florida, we had a weight room that was not very big.
No, I understand.
It's very tiny, very, very tiny. But that's where Anquan Bolden went to school.
Yeah. That's
where Darnell McPhee went to school. So big-time guys coming out of there. And what I've seen what I noticed is, you're getting coached by, an uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whose most football experience was when he played high school ball 32 years ago.
Yeah.
So the development's not always there. It's not like Texas where they get the cream of the crop.
Yeah, it's like pro-style football.
Yeah, and their coaches are paid really, really well. Florida's not that way. It's not very – you don't get paid a lot of money, so it's hard to find coaches. So the development doesn't really come for a lot of Florida kids until they get out, if that makes sense. You always look back at my career, it was crazy. From middle school till I was a junior in college, I had a different O-line coach every year.
Wow.
So, from when I started playing in 6th grade on.
Yeah.
So I never even had a chance for myself to get footed in the right thing and thinking, okay, this is what O-line play is, because every year it changed. Every year it changed, and it constantly was a constant change. So that's what I always think about Florida, man. But the athletes are there all over. Especially in the South Florida area, when you start getting Palm Beach County down, when you start getting to Broward, Dade, and just the want and the desire is a little bit different for those guys. A lot of kids, even where I grew up, I finally finished out in Okeechobee, and which was great, very different situation. But in Pahokee, when I was first living there, a lot of kids, that's the way of getting out of that town. And, you're talking about a town of 20,000 people, not very big, and everybody works in the sugarcane field. Unless you want to be a sugarcane guy, which no 18-year-old kid wants to be that. How do you get out? Well, you get out using athletics.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see a big desire out of the Florida kids. What's a little bit different is They just want to get out, get away.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been good to recruit there, because even whenever I was going to school, there was nothing in the state of Florida but Division I schools. There was no NAIAs, there was no 1AAs, there was no Division IIs. So if you wanted to play football and you weren't a Division I kid, you had to leave the state.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that. And that's still a little bit this case. I mean, there's more NAIAs now in Division IIs, but the Florida kid still has that want of like, okay, I want to leave and see something different. And that's what I wanted. You know, I grew up in Florida. It was awesome. You know, I only had summer and spring, didn't know what seasons were. And everybody always laughs at me because I end up coming and playing ball here in Mississippi, and they're always like, hey, you're so far away from home.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? This was like the closest place I was looking at. I looked at schools in Indiana, Ohio, and the Dakotas. Like, I wanted to get somewhere different and see something different. And that's kind of a little bit different when it's the Florida kids. They kind of are that way.
Yeah.
So.
And, like, I would say, like, it's really interesting to hear you say that because, like, you know, I'm from Memphis, and, like, we're not always, like, looked at as a football city or anything like that. But if you ask me, like, I think we're really becoming a football city.
I agree.
And, like, kind of what you said just in terms of, like, developing players and things like that. Like, a lot of kids from Memphis, like, you go to these high schools, it's like, all right, we're just going to put the ball in our best athletes' hands and let them run around. And so, like, to think, like, Florida is, like, considered, like, a hotbed for recruiting, I would have thought, like, the just talent level, like, from coaching, playing, all that, I would have thought that would have been up. And
it's really not. Now, like I said, there's the outliers, you know what I mean? The extremely dominant programs. I mean, they're that way, without a doubt. But the majority of us, I mean, it's not. It's, you know, coaches that don't have a ton of experience, you know, or have a ton of experience, but really at the high school level, and that's all they ever really were, as far as even their playing career, high school football, you know, high school players and stuff like that. Or it's a lot of, you know, we're a big retirement state.
Yeah.
So that's where you also kind of get a little bit of luck sometimes, as you get a coach that moves in from out of state that they're trying to retire in Florida, who's a really good coach, and you luck out. But that's really what it is. You know, it's a little bit different. A lot of people don't realize that. So the ceiling on those kids when they get into a college program and get into where they can eat 3 meals a day and have a full workout program, because also, as I'm sure you're used to in Memphis, I mean, probably the majority of your guys at your school, if they were a good athlete, they probably played everything.
Yeah, that's facts. That's what I meant. Like, put your best athlete.
That's right. And they're going to play baseball. They're going to play basketball. They're going to bounce. Well, which is great and everything, but the problem is they don't ever get a chance to develop at one thing.
Yeah.
So that's where you see guys, they'll come in and they blow up. And now because we had a guy who played for me at Mississippi College one year. I'll never forget him. He was 6'5", 215 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And he's a defensive end. He was very okay. And I was like, man, I think once we get you out of high school, you're going to probably grow into being something really good. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But he played from football to wrestling to basketball to baseball to track. He never got a time off. And so we ended up getting him in first year. Like I said, brought him at 215. He was 9th string defensive end. We get the spring ball. He went from 215 to 230, and we put him at tight end, and he did okay. Our tackle went down last week, the spring ball. We moved him to tackle and really showed a lot of promise at tackle. Like, maybe this will be what he does, but he's still light.
Yeah.
He shows back up from summer after working out and everything and doing all he was trying to do to be ready to show back fall camp. He goes back to fall camp at almost 285 pounds and looks the part.
Yeah.
And it's because he can do that now.
Yeah.
He's not having to worry about going from the next sport to the next sport. He could focus strictly on football. And that's where I see the change come from a lot of those guys. You know, when you get a chance to actually perfect your craft, right? Versus trying to be this
super athlete.
You know, jack of all trades, master of none is what it comes down to. You know what I mean? You don't ever get a chance to, and that's for any sport. You know, even if you're a baseball, if baseball is your natural sport, like, well, you spend all fall while those guys are at hitting practice and getting training. Well, you're playing football. So you're not getting a chance to develop to be the best you can be at baseball. The same vice versa.
Yeah. So
that's what I've always noticed with Florida kids. It's very similar to Memphis. And I noticed that a lot with Louisiana. Louisiana's the same way.
Yeah.
Very
I
similar.
agree with that,
And I think that's why you see a lot of athletes come out of that state. And Mississippi's that way. You know, when you put your best kid on everything that you can do. If there's a sport that he can play in,
he's doing it.
He's doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, you try to help the school and try to help the programs, but sometimes it doesn't, not that it hurts the kid, but it's just hard for him. You know, he never gets a chance to take a break.
Yeah, that's fact.
You know, that's where you see the burnout come out with a lot of these guys. So
yeah, because I was kind of that way in high school. Like, you know, I played football, then I like my early years in high school, I switched over to soccer, did that, and then so like my freshman year, like I played soccer, and I was like, man, like I come back in the spring like to football, and I'm like these guys came in with me as freshmen, and now they like 10, 15 pounds up on me.
Yeah.
Like I'm falling behind.
Exactly.
So long story short, I cut all the soccer.
Yeah, well, it's right though. It's true.
Yeah.
And that's even, I mean, that's another one that's like that, because soccer is in high school. And I didn't know how it was in every state, but it sounds like for Tennessee, it's like Florida. They kind of overlap just a little bit, but you can do both.
Yeah.
If you have guys that are doing both, I mean, you're talking about two different training regiments.
Exactly.
You know, where you're football, you're trying to bulk up so you can prevent injuries and be a little bit bigger. Then you go to soccer where you're running 10 miles a day. Yeah, and it's like, what? And you can't keep weight on. And then you go to basketball, and it's the same thing. You're in the gym, you're sweating. It's a nightmare. So
it's hard.
You're trying to be good at football and trying to get better at that, but you're shredding 20 pounds every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing these other sports where, like you said, you come back in the next year, and it's like, how this guy gets so much bigger than me all of a sudden?
Exactly.
Well, it's because all he did was football all year.
Yeah, and football, eat, do all that kind of stuff. So I got to ask you, for you, was it always just football, or did you do other things? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So, man, look, my first true love was baseball.
I
love baseball.
Yeah.
Played that when I was 5, all the way up until I was a freshman in high school, and I'll come back to that. Football, I tried to play when I was younger, but I was the fat kid. And, and then where I grew up, if you weighed, you couldn't play park league ball if you weighed over a certain amount. So I always had to run. I was always the fat kid that had to run. I'm down in my underwear trying to do the weigh-in. And football became a nightmare for me. So, like, I played for a little bit when I was younger, and then I was like, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. I quit. I ended up coming back to it when I got to middle school, and I didn't have the weight limit anymore. And I was like, oh, this is a little bit more enjoyable.
I don't have to, big boy.
I don't have to run just because I'm bigger than everybody else. So I enjoyed that a little bit more, and I'll never forget. So that was my two things, baseball and football, and I loved baseball more. And I was finishing up football season, finished up after my freshman year, had a good season, and I'm getting ready to go to baseball practice. I got my bag, got all this stuff. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
And coach stops me, and he goes, York, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to baseball practice, coach. He goes, oh, you like baseball? I said, coach, love baseball. Been playing it my whole life. He's like, what do you play? I was like, oh, I pitch and I play first base. He's like, oh, okay. He goes, how many 5'8" first basemen are playing in the majors? And I was like, I don't know. Probably not many.
Yeah.
And he goes, what about 5'8" pitchers? I was like, I don't think there's any, coach. He goes, that's right, son. That's right. Because that's why you're not going to play baseball anymore. You're going to wrestling. And he put me in his golf cart. It took me to the wrestling team.
Oh, wow.
And I joined wrestling. I wrestled the rest of my high school career. So I played football, I wrestled, and I did track and field just for fun.
Yeah. I ain't going to lie. I'd pay to see a picture of you in that wrestling uniform.
No, you don't want to see that. No, you don't want to see that. That was a hard thing for me as a freshman. Like, I got in there, and I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. I got to my first meet, and they're like, you got to put this on. I'm like,
oh, no.
I don't know if I agree with this. I ended up doing it, but I enjoyed wrestling a lot. As much as I love football, and I really do, I got a newfound love and really respect for wrestlers because it's such a. If you've never done it, those 6 minutes are like the longest 6 minutes of your life. Those 3 2-minute periods, and it's a one-on-one sport where. If you lose or something goes wrong, it's nobody's fault but your own.
It's all on you.
Yeah, so it's because you didn't train hard enough or you didn't do this or you didn't do that. There ain't nobody else you can look at and be like, oh, well, this happened. No,
that's all you.
Yeah, and it was tough, man. I was blown away about the amount of work you have to do to be a wrestler and to be a good wrestler at that. I mean, I have horror stories of running with trash bags on and trying to lose weight and cut weight and going home at night before a tournament. And mom makes dinner and I can't eat the dinner. So all I have to do, because I'm trying to make weight the next day. So I'm putting the food in my mouth, I'm chewing it up, and I'm spitting it out in the trash can. Like, that's all I get. So I got a whole new respect for guys that did that. And so wrestling was different now. Nothing ever like it. I've never seen anything else like it. And if you really want to find out who you are as a person, if you step into that world, I'm telling you, it's the longest 6 minutes of your life. But it was fun. So I enjoyed wrestling. Like I said, love baseball. Now, if you ask me, I can't stand it. I hate watching it. I want to go see it. Yeah, I just don't enjoy it anymore. And which is so crazy for me because I always grew up loving it, and that's just the way it is. Things change. But football, wrestling, and then I threw shot put like every big kid in a high school. You know what I mean?
Come throw this big
yeah,
ball.
Nothing special. Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So coming out of high school, like for me, recruiting like was a lot of digital social media stuff. We had huddle, camps, all those things. So for you, and especially like talking about you had schools in like Dakota, like all across the country. What was like your recruitment like coming out of high school, and like how would you say it's like different than today?
It was so much more difficult. So I'll never forget when I decided that was what I wanted to do. You had to make a highlight tape.
Yeah,
which is so easy now. Go on there, you click your clips, and
just
move
on
on.
the phone.
Yeah, it's good stuff. For us, it wasn't. So you had to go in to see the head coach. You had to get the camcorder tape, and then you had to mark on a piece of paper like where you wanted to clip it from. So then you could get the camcorder. You had to hook it up to the computer. Then from the computer, you could digitally clip out your clips. But you had to do that for every game.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so it was a ton of work. I mean, I think it took me almost a month to get a highlight tape done.
Oh, wow.
And it was me spending all my free time in the coach's office, like, all right, writing this down. Okay, from minute mark, 7:32 to minute mark 7:46. That's a clip I want of game one. Yeah. And then trying to go through and find it that way, it was such a nightmare. And then for us, it was, email was starting to be big, but you couldn't digitally send anything. So you're having to hard copy mail everything. So once you got it made, you're making DVDs and you're sending DVDs out and hoping to hear back from whoever. So it was tough. It was really, really tough. But it was kind of neat because you, like I said, got to see a lot of places and do a lot of different things. And I thought I had got my recruiting story was really weird. I thought I had locked into a school. I was going to go to a Division II school, and they were going to scholarship me. I got a call the night before signing day. Hey, we were going to sign a JUCO transfer. Oh, wow. So we're not going to be able to scholarship you in the fall. We'll be able to give you a scholarship in the spring. Yeah. Well, the school was way too expensive. I was like, I couldn't even afford half the cost of the school. So I said, Coach, I appreciate it, man, but I'm just going to have to move on. Yeah. And he said, okay, I understand. And so at that point, I kind of gave up football. I was like, this is it. I'm done. So I was going to go to Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida. I was going to join the surf team. I was a little slimmer then, and I wanted to go hang out and do that and just live on the beach. And I get a phone call in May, and from a coach at Mississippi College. He goes, hey, I loved your film. Want to talk to you about coming and playing. And I was like, Coach, I said, how much is it going to cost for me to go to school? Yeah, that's I was like, I got this number in my head. I was like, can you meet my number? And he said, yeah. He goes, I think I can. I said, Coach, said, you can meet the number. I'm coming. Yeah. So about a week later, he calls me back and sends me my scholarship package and met my number that I needed to be at. I said, okay, sounds good. I'm coming. Yeah. He's like, don't you want to visit? Don't you want to see? I was like, no, I'm good. I'm coming. Let's roll. And went up and ended up coming to Mississippi, and now I've been here since 2007. Been living here ever since. So it was a blessing, but it's crazy how this world is. You think something's done and you think something's over, and then you get another opportunity. So it was really good opportunity for me, and it was kind of a blessing, needless to say. So
I know you said you didn't take the visit to MC, but did you take like other visits, or what did that just look like?
Yeah, I did. So I took let me see here. So I took a visit to a couple places. I took a visit to LaGrange College. I'll never forget that when they first started their program. That was really bittersweet for me. I went there. They were just starting up, and really wanted to play there because it was closer to home.
And that's in Texas, right?
It's in Georgia, in LaGrange, Georgia. Okay. So, but they were doing some things where they were helping Florida kids out with the lottery scholarship. So it was going to be super affordable, and I'll never forget it. Enjoyed the visit. I finally meet the O-line coach, and he told me that I was too small to play there. And I said, I understand. I said, that's what it is. Because I was a small lineman. I was 5'8", 240 pounds. So I was like, I understand, no big deal, and I'll move on. And so moved on from there. Went to Earlham University up in Indiana. Had a great visit there. Went to Dayton. Went to Eastern Michigan. That was awesome. Knew the O-line coach there. He flew me up for an official visit. That was really cool. He knew that there was probably a 0% chance of me getting a scholarship there. But he really liked me and wanted me to come there, offered me a walk-on opportunity there. I just didn't want to go
all the way to Michigan.
It snows.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
Facts.
And that scared me a little bit, being a Florida guy, But it was fun. It was a great time. But the best part of the whole thing was, like I said, with my visit with LaGrange, the guy told me I was too small. So then when I ended up going to Mississippi College, one of our non-conference games that year is LaGrange. That's my freshman year, and I'm starting as a freshman.
Yeah.
And I think we beat LaGrange by 40.
Sheesh. Got a good old I told you so.
Oh, I made sure that was the person I saw after the game. I walked right over to the O-line coach. I said, look, coach, I know I might have been a little too small for you. I said, but this place thought I was okay. It was good seeing you. Just walked away. I was like my one dirty moment, I guess I had of my or bad, I guess bad morality. Maybe I should have even done that, but I was like, I had to.
I understand.
That was a moment.
For sure. I understand that one for sure because it was like I had a few of those moments like these past couple years, like when we played Rhodes 2 years ago, like seeing Coach Chow again. I was like, you had me doing those fingertip push-ups like in the cold. Like, you going to feel this one.
That's right. That's right. It feels good when you get to pull one over on somebody. So, but it was good, man. Got a ton of experience. Had a high school coach that tried to do a lot for me and try to help me out with getting seen by some places. Cool thing in the state of Florida that a lot of people don't know. So we have a recruiting fair circuit in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So it usually starts at right after signing day. And you can basically – there is a major recruiting fair in every major city in the state of Florida for about a day and a half where 100-plus college coaches come in and try and see kids and try to pick up unsigned prospects. So he tried to get me through that system a little bit, trying to help me out. But, it was weird. I kind of was at that moment. I was like, oh, I think I'm done. I think it was over. And I really wasn't pursuing much because I kind of checked out in my head. Yeah. And then when you get a call and somebody likes you, kind of changes your mind a little bit.
Put that smile on your face.
That's right. It makes you think, man, okay, maybe I was all right. Maybe I can do this.
Yeah. So, you end up going to Mississippi College. You get here. What was it like just those first couple months just being so far away from home, being so far away from everything you were used to? Because you said you were going to be on the surf team. Yeah. There's no surfing in Mississippi.
No, there isn't. I was lucky because I wanted to get away. And this is going to sound kind of crazy, and probably a lot of people won't believe this, but I didn't get homesick. I wanted to be away. And it wasn't that I had anything against my parents. They were great, and I loved where I grew up. I loved the way I was raised. But I just wanted something different for myself. And I wanted to get out of the town that I was in and just see something different. So when I got to college, I was like, great. I'll never forget it. I think I went home my first year. I went home for Thanksgiving, and I went home for Christmas.
Yeah, can't miss that Thanksgiving one.
No,
to go home.
Without a doubt. And then I went home for 2 weeks in the summer.
And then, wow. So you stayed the summer,
and then after that, I never went back.
Yeah.
So, the only time I ever went home was I went home for Christmas Day, and then I went back up. I went home for Thanksgiving because it was in the middle of the school year. Yeah. But, I stayed up in college. I really enjoyed being in Mississippi. It was definitely different for me. It was a culture shock. Growing up in South Florida, very different place. It's kind of its own country.
I agree.
Kind of it's Wild West a little bit.
Even coming down from Memphis, I was like, Mississippi life.
Yeah. And when I got here, but what I loved about it, everything's a little slower.
Yeah.
Everybody's way more friendlier. That was a big thing that kind of shocked me. I'll never forget, even as a freshman, walking in Walmart and people going, hey, how you doing? I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, why is he talking to me? It's just people being friendly. I wasn't used to that, the Southern hospitality part, but it was awesome. And then had a lot of friends that I played college ball with that were from the local area. So I got to see a lot of things. So got to hang out in New Orleans, got to go to Baton Rouge, got to go to Memphis, got to go to Nashville, places that I never would have had the opportunity to do and see and go to if I would have stayed home. So when you got a chance to do some of those things and travel and see all these different things, I remember we went to South Padre Island one year for spring break, did all these cool things. And it was just things that those would have never happened if I would have went away to college.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it, man. I did not check up. Now I was probably one of the few. There was a lot of other guys that were very homesick. I'll never forget. I think it was third night in the fall camp. I was walking back from the grocery store, from the corner store, and 2 senior wide receivers stopped me, and they said, "Hey, York, come sit down with us." And it was late. It was 11 o'clock. I'm like, "Wow, what are y'all doing?" And they were sitting out in this on these tables and chairs right in front of the dorm, and they were watching kids leave in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow.
The kids packing up their packing up their dorm rooms, getting in their car and leaving. And I was like, do you guys do this all the time? We've been doing it for every year we've been here. And I was like, wow. It's like, this happens? Like, always does. And
Wow.
I didn't understand it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to be at home. I didn't want to be at home. I wanted to be somewhere different. And I dang sure wasn't going to go back home with my tail tucked between my legs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that was, I wouldn't have been able to stand up or say anything or do anything I wanted to do in my hometown. So it was different though. It was different, but I enjoyed it. I love being here in Mississippi. Love being in the South. Like I said, the biggest thing for me is just the friendliness.
Yeah, I agree.
That was different. I was not prepared for that at all, and it was awesome.
Yeah, because like when I was getting recruited, like I had like a lot of like SAA schools, like schools in the region, but then I also had like some offers like from those northern schools, like you said. Like I took a visit up to Appleton to visit a school called Lawrence.
Okay.
It was like March, April, like 2 inches of snow on the ground.
No.
I immediately said no. Like they had like the best calf, all that, but I was like, nah, I can't do it. And then the other one was Washington and Lee, and I was just like, that's too small for me. Like like it's like a town of like 1,000 people.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was nasty. But kind of talking about like, you know what I'm saying, like your first fall camp at MC.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you hear a lot of, especially like older guys, like you saying like how different football was back in y'all's day, like how we got it nice. So how was your first fall camp?
It was awful. No, it really was. So, man, I'll never forget. So back then, I was right at the cusp of the era where we were still allowed to have two-a-days every day. So you had two-a-days every day. And
how many days?
For all fall camp.
Oh, wow.
Like that was normal. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So like it was a grind. And you know, I was an O-lineman.
Yeah.
So it's already a grind because every O-line coach, and I know because I'm one of them, they want the O-lineman out there 30, 40 minutes before practice doing pre-practice stuff. So like you're already gone through half of practice before stretch starts. You know, and it's just like, ugh. And then you're going through another 2-hour practice, and then, you know, it's just, and then you got weights in between with meetings, hoping you can catch 15 minutes of sleep here and there before the next practice. And it was rough. And then it was hot, you know, and that was what shocked me. I thought coming here that it would not be the same type of heat as it was in Florida. It's the exact same. The only thing that Florida has a little bit worse than here that I've found is Florida has this really nasty habit, and we used to see it all the time when I was growing up in high school. If your practice field was here, and which ours was, our game field was here, and then the road was here, it would literally rain on the road with the sun out, blazing, but it wouldn't rain on the practice field. And that happened all the time, like the daylight showers in Florida, which we don't get a ton of that here. But outside of that, humidity, same. Heat, same. Like I was just like, I thought I was going north. Like it was going to be a little bit better. Yeah, you know. No, it didn't go far enough north, I guess. But that was my first year. Second year was right when they changed the rules. And they went to, you could no longer do two-a-days every day. You had to break them. So you had to do a two-a-day, one-a-day, two-a-day, one-a-day. That was awesome. That made it like, because I grew up in that area, I was like, oh, this is like a breeze now. You know what I mean? And then right whenever I first started coaching, let me think. No, it would have been a couple years into coaching. They got rid of two-a-days altogether. To where now it's just the one-a-day, where all you can do is the one practice and then you get your walkthrough. But I mean, it was different. That was the hardest thing I remember about it. Was just, you know, you're talking about 2 or 3 hour practices twice a day, and it's full contact. Let's get after it. You know, inside drill for 20 minutes, just banging heads. And I'm just, man. I was like, oh, it's just. When I look back at that, and it was always funny to me because then when I come back my sophomore year, the freshmen come in and it's the 2-1-2-1, and they're complaining about how tough it is. It's so hard. I'm like, you guys have no idea. And then we come back the next year, or then we come back years down the road, and it's only no two-a-days at all. And like, Coach, this is so hard. How did you guys do? It was like, oh, it used to be worse. But I grew up in high school where we did three-a-days.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, like, so it was brutal.
In my high school, like we had like a camp period. Like we stayed at this church, like
did the same thing.
Did all of that. And like we had like 3-a-day practices, and then we ended it with a scrimmage. So like I came into college thinking like, oh shit, we finna do the same thing. Like I gotta really get right. And then I come here just one practice. So I'm like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. I'll never forget. We did in high school. We used to go to this little same thing. So it was like this church. It was kind of like a church ground / campground situation. They had these terrible bunk rooms that had 12 bunks in them. But it was right on a lake, but it was surrounded by orange groves. And we would go there and we would spend 8 days there. And we had a 3 hour practice in the morning, We had a 2-hour practice in the afternoon, and it was really mostly special teams.
Yeah.
But I was an O-lineman. So it was just another 2-hour practice for me. You know what I mean? It was nothing different. And then we have another 3-hour practice that evening, and it was just like the only thing you were looking forward to was going and jumping in the lake right after practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that prepared me a little bit for when I got to college, but not really, because the pace and the operation at the college level is so much different. You know what I mean? I wasn't prepared for how fast-paced everything moves, how time-oriented everything is, and transitioning in and out of things, you know, because I went to a smaller high school where, you know, a lot of us played both ways. So you couldn't do a ton because of that. You know, you had offense on Monday, defense on Tuesdays, you know what I mean? Then getting in this world where it was like, oh, here's 45 minutes of Indy with your O-line coach. Huh? You know what I mean? You're going, I got to be here all day for this? So that was the different part about it, you know, and I think that's the thing that shocks guys when they get to college. It's just everybody thinks they know until you get in it, and it's different because just the speed and everything, the way you move, the way you operate. And then I always tell people too, it's the age differential. You know, like I always thought it was crazy when I was a freshman in high school. You know, I was 14 going on 15, and I'm playing against guys that are 17, 18 years old that are senior. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Then I got to college. Well, because of my career and the way I ended up going for an extra year. I was 22, almost 23 as a fifth-year senior. And when you do the math on that, the kids that I was my last year of college ball playing and those freshmen, right?
It was in middle school.
They were in middle school when I was a freshman in college.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's a big differential. Because now you're not talking about two kids, 14, 18. You're talking about a grown man and a kid. It's different. You know what I mean? The body. So just the speed, the power, and the physicality of the game is so much different at the college level.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like you said, like, I got that same stuff like this past year. Like, it was one day at practice, like, Cheesy come up to me. He like, Cheesy, the whole line group. He come up to me. He like, hey, bro, what year you graduated high school? I'm like, 2018. He was like, damn, you old as shit, boy.
Yeah, that's right. You're like the grandpa of the group. That's right. You become dad.
Yeah, it's like that transition happens fast, too. It's like freshman year to old head. So.
Well, because when you're in college, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's just we're still all in college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The craziest thing for you in your fifth year is all the guys that you came in with are no longer here. But the guys that came in the year behind you, they're still there because they're seniors. Yeah. So it's not that weird. But until that freshman walks in, it's like, oh, man, shit, okay, I am old. Okay, got it.
And so kind of talking about, like, just that having to adjust, like, you know, to the power, the speed of college, like, in camp and things like that. What was your welcome to college football moment, whether it be, like, in camp, in a game? Like, what was that moment that was just like, oh, shit? Like,
yeah, I had one. So I had two of them.
Yeah.
So one of them was in camp. We had a really good Mike linebacker, two-time all-conference guy. His name was Clint Champagne. He was from the Hattiesburg area. He was a senior, and we were running inside drill. And I think, if I remember right, I think it was a power. And I pull, and I go to hit him on the power. And I thought I did pretty well. I did. I got a good fit on him, and he got pretty pissed about it. And he commenced to punching me in my head, like trying to rip off my helmet and punch me. And, like, I wasn't used to that world. You know what I mean? I just wasn't like, this guy's really mad. And when I look back at it, it's like, well, he was mad because I was a freshman, and I'm sure the defensive coordinator was
on his ass.
Yeah, without a doubt, just murdering him for it. Ends up becoming a really good friend of mine later down the road. But it was just like, you know, that was a welcome moment. And then the next welcome moment for me was playing. I had two of them. Yeah. One of them was here. So playing at Millsaps, and first game of my college career, and we're down here in the visitors end zone, which is right next to the fraternities.
Yeah.
And this guy, one of these fraternity guys, he's yelling my name, or he's yelling my number.
Yeah.
And I remember going before we went to the game, my coach was like, hey, these guys are really hostile. The fans are. So just be careful. Don't acknowledge them. Don't talk to them. Da da da. And so I'm like, okay, I got you. Guys yelling my number, da da da, and then internet. Now you got rosters. So he finds my name. So now he's yelling my name, saying everything he can say about me, and then he starts saying my mom's name because that's on the website. Who your mom is, who your dad is, da da da. And that was where I had enough, and I went to turn around and say something to him. And about the time I got squared up to him, this red Solo cup full of beverage, we'll just say, okay, smacks me right in the face.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this isn't high school. They didn't do this in high school. That was pretty crazy. And then the other one was we're playing Mayard and Baylor, and very good team. We were pretty good at the time too, and they were amazing. They had a linebacker, and his name just went out of my head, but he played for about 6-7 years in the NFL.
Okay.
And I'll never forget it. We're on like the 15-yard line coming out, and we run power, and I got to pull and hit this guy. So I go to pull and hit him, and my man cuts me in the hole. Boom! Gets up, makes the tackle, and I'm like, what is going on? So we come back, and we ran power again. So I'm like, okay, well, he cut me. I'm going to cut him this time. So I pull, go to cut him. My man puts his hands on my back, jumps over me, makes the tackle. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. So then we get to the third play, and I'm like, and the quarterback starts laughing because we were signaling it in from the sideline. And I was like, he called power again, didn't he? He goes, yeah. And I said, all right, here we go. So now I'm going to the line of scrimmage. I'm sitting here thinking in my head, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? So I tried hitting him. He cut me. I tried cutting him. He would jump over top of me. So I was like, I know what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to try and go in. Like I'm going to try and go low.
Yeah.
And then as he goes to jump, I'm going to catch him and get him in his chin. That was a really good idea. Very bad way of it happening, though. I'll never forget. He stuck me so hard. His helmet right underneath my chin.
Yeah.
I mean, wham! I'm down on the ground. He makes a tackle, and I'm just sitting there like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, you know, I obviously felt terrible as a player. I'm like, I must be awful. Da, da, da. And then the guy, like I said, ends up going and playing for about 8 years in the NFL, so I don't feel as bad now.
Yeah.
Didn't change how I felt at the moment, though. Felt terrible.
Especially not in the film room.
No. As we're watching it on replay, you know, 17 times over. No, it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, and so you kind of hit on it. You played Millsaps. Like, you know, that was still the backyard brawl?
Backyard brawl.
Yeah, it was still a thing when you was in college. You went 4-1 against Millsaps.
Yeah, I did. I did all right. I did okay. Millsaps was, and which was a big deal because they were really, really good. Juan Joseph was the quarterback at the time. And they were, and look, it wasn't the 4-1, I'll put it this way, it was all tight. The 4 wins were all tight. The one loss was a beating. I think Millsaps put it on us.
It was 42-6.
Yeah.
That was the year. That was the year they won the conference with Juan Joseph. And
they put it on us that year, and so it was tough. But it was so different for us, and I always remember like playing Millsaps was not like playing anybody that we played in our conference. Everybody at Millsaps, it felt 2 things I always thought was, and this is kind of a 2-part on one of them. They were always smaller than everybody we played in our conference. But because they were small, they were always way quicker. So we weren't used to dealing with the speed, especially like on the D-line. The speed was completely different.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have guys, you know, we played Maryland Baylor. They got a nose guard who's 6'3", 325 pounds. The nose guard here was 6'2", 230 pounds. They could move.
Yeah.
We weren't used to that. So that was always different for us, was the speed of it a little bit. And then the other thing that was changing for us was the way they were coached. They're always coached really, really well. Super disciplined team. So even if we were maybe way better or better than them athletically, not even necessarily way better, everything still stayed close because of the way they were coached. They were coached so well, and they just plucked away and plucked away. But there was some crazy games. I mean, I remember one of them was it was at our place at MC. We were down 21-0 going into the 4th quarter.
Oh wow.
They were beating us bad. Juan was the quarterback. He was killing us. And we had a turnover on downs, or no, had with 3 and out. We're going to punt the ball. We're on the -10. So we're punting from our end zone. And our head coach decides to run a fake punt.
Okay.
And we run a fake punt, and we go 90 yards with it and score. And we end up rallying back and winning the game 24-21. So it was super crazy. Like there was a lot of things like that happened. I think it's what it was 24-21. It was something close like that. It was super crazy. Like none of the games were ever just walkaways.
Yeah.
Like I said, except for the one where we got murdered. But outside of that, I mean, all the games were always really, really close. And it was always fun. It was fun as I got older coming here because it was such a hostile environment. And you kind of got to feed off of that a little bit as a player. MC, it wasn't that way. It's a little bit different. They were way more strict on some things, and then we had the track around our field. So it was like people were right up on you. Yeah, it's not like you were sitting here where you got the student section literally right behind you yelling at you and stuff. So it was kind of a different feel for each game. But it was good times, man. I love the backyard brawl. It was really good times. It was really fun.
Yeah, and then I saw it was like a year y'all beat Millsaps and Belhaven. So y'all kind of walking around Jackson like king of the city.
Yeah, we were. It was good. That was good. That was a good year for us. We've had a couple. That was right. I think when Belhaven might have still been NAIA at that time. Yeah. So it was sad, for me. One, because me being here now as a head coach at Millsaps, but being a former Choctaw, I'd love to play MC again.
Yeah.
I wish they were Division III. We could still keep that rivalry together. Just because I played in that rivalry.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. But I'm glad we had the rivalry with Belhaven now. You know what I mean? I'm glad that happened. At least that when one team went up, when MC went to Division II, I'm glad Belhaven went to Division III. So that we're still that city rivalry. I think it's awesome to have.
Yeah.
Anytime you can have that, it's really cool, and it's kind of a different thing. I always felt that way, even with we always hated Millsaps leading up to the game.
Uh-huh.
And once the game was over, Millsaps was our best friend.
Yeah.
Love the guys. You know what I mean? Because they were in the city with us. They knew what it was like. They knew what it was like being here. We hung out with a lot of the Millsap guys. We partied together with a lot of Millsap guys. They came to our parties. We came to their parties. We were kind of like our own little weird, big brother, little brother hate relationship. We were friends. We liked each other. But there was always that month and a half, 2 months out of the year where we don't ever want to see you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was kind of a cool little relationship. So I'm glad we still get that with Belhaven too.
Yeah. And that rivalry has even, sparked up some.
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So kind of just going back to your time at MC, you said, how you played as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
How hard was that? And kind of just what was your mindset coming into that freshman camp, that freshman season, to put yourself in the position to play to start as a true freshman?
Everybody thinks they want to start as a freshman. And I was that kid too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing. It was a blessing to be able to do it. But it was hard. And it really hurt me career-wise, I think. And what I mean by that was I spent a lot of time my freshman year getting yelled at constantly. Yeah. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I came from a school out of high school where we were I formation, threw the ball maybe 10 times a season. And then I go to MC where we're spread offense, we're throwing the ball a lot. I never took a pass set until I got to college, really.
Oh, wow.
I was having to learn a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So, and then our playbook in high school was very considerable to what you would run in a park league game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you get here in college level, it's oh, wow. So, I spent a whole year not knowing what to do. And the only saving grace I had a left tackle, Jacob Matina, with me, who was a veteran. He basically told me what to do every play.
Yeah.
If it would have been for him, who knows what would have happened. Yeah. You know what I mean? But what I felt like, the thing that kind of killed me when I came back in my sophomore year, my self-esteem or confidence of my playing ability really went down.
Yeah.
You spent a whole year basically just getting ripped.
Yeah.
And so I felt like maybe I wasn't good enough. And part of it was I was undersized and all these things. And so I came back in my sophomore year, I put on 45 pounds. I thought that was going to be the answer. Wasn't the answer. Because then I was just fat and lazy and slow. Ended up breaking my leg my sophomore year. And in game 2, fifth or sixth play of game 2. Ended up breaking my leg, snapping it in half, which was awful, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me too. Because it got me to where I was able to get my mindset back right. And
take a step away.
Yeah, I got to step back and realize, okay, I was just a knuckleheaded freshman. Nobody felt any certain type of way about me. That's just what I put on myself.
Yeah.
But I got to sit back and really dive into the film, dive into the playbook, because now I'm not playing. I'm out. I'm injured. I'm in a cast. I'm walking around. So I was in meetings. I was constantly in the coach's offices trying to learn and trying to get better understanding. So now when I come back from my redshirt sophomore year, I know the offense just as well as everybody else does. You know what I mean? And I'm telling everybody else what to do now. And so that was really it was crazy though, man. Like I said, a lot of guys want to do that freshman year starting thing. They don't realize the mental turmoil that sometimes can be.
I will say, like you said, a lot of people don't really recognize the mental aspect of the game.
That's right.
Because for any position, I know for me, a receiver lose confidence, you start dropping balls, start doing things you wouldn't normally do. And like you said, you lost confidence, you start questioning yourself. And that's real. That's a struggle that everybody at some point in their career goes through.
For sure.
And so, you miss that sophomore season, you come back and y'all have your best year in college. Y'all go 8-2, win the conference, make it to the playoffs. Just what made that season so special
For us, a lot of it was we kind of went into the season with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. And part of it was, earlier, a couple seasons before we were 8-2 that year.
Yeah.
Did really, really well. And then, come back the next year when I ended up breaking my leg, our starting quarterback goes down, we lose 2 starting wide receivers. Like, this is all in game 2.
Oh, wow.
So we lose a ton of guys.
Yeah.
And we still do okay. I mean, our freshman quarterback comes in, ends up being freshman of the year.
Uh-huh.
But when we come back for that third season, there were 7 teams, I believe, in the conference, or 8 teams in the conference. We were picked 7th in the conference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had this, like, nasty chip about it, like, oh, we got everybody coming back. Like, we're going to be better.
Yeah.
And we played Millsaps. We ended up winning that game. And so we're feeling, okay, yeah, you're right. We're going to be better. Then we play our next game of the season, and we get drugged. We end up getting beat, I think, might have been close to 40 points. Team didn't even punt that we played. They murdered us. Triple option offense. I mean, they just killed us. And right at that moment, I think everybody had got to the point where they had remembered how we felt the year before.
Mm.
And they were like, no,
Yeah.
it's not happening anymore. And so we went from that going forward. We really went from there on, and we just started believing in each other, trusting in each other. I mean, and there was games where offensively we weren't productive, and defense really had to bail us out, and they did. They did a phenomenal job bailing us out. But it was never like this, oh, we got to help these guys out. No, it was like, man, don't worry about it. We got you. Yeah, we got you this time. Because just like that would happen that game, the next game would be the other way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We had to come out and do some things really special on offense in order to keep us in the game. And so there just became this real feeling of believing in each other and just wanting to give everybody their best. We had a lot of guys that were going to be seniors, and they didn't want to go out on a bad note. And they just wanted things to be the right way, and we just felt really confident in the way we worked.
Yeah.
We worked our butt off in the spring prior to. Like anything else, had a lot of fights in fall camp, just trying to get.
That's how you know it's going to be a good season.
Yeah, and it was just, and it was things where we just had to get it right, and ended up doing really, really well, and beat Hardin-Simmons, which was a huge hump for us that we just seemed to never be able to beat them. Ended up beating them, then we turn around and come down the road. We played Mare Baylor. They're the number 2 or number 3 team in the country at the time. I think they had gone 40-plus conference games without a loss, and they're coming to play us, and our defense showed out.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And they played their butts off. And we ended up, I think, winning that game, I think 17-14 is when we ended up winning it. And it was
tight window.
Yeah, it was great. It was crazy because we ended up pushing them. They get the ball back with like 3 minutes to go in the game, 14-14. And at that time, Mare Baylor didn't really throw the ball. They really only ran. And they were heavy power offense team. And they ended up coming out throwing the ball, and they threw a pick.
Yeah.
And we got it.
Set everything up. Yeah.
Oh, we ended up coming out. So when the time this happens, I think when they threw that pick, there was like 1:15 left in the game, and we ended up getting a little bit of a drive going just to get us a field goal range. We ended up kicking a 30-some-odd yard field goal to win it, 17-14.
Yeah.
Give them their first conference loss and 40-some-odd losses. I mean, and first time, we toppled these guys.
I know that's a special moment.
It was crazy. It was. I have a picture of it somewhere where the whole stadium goes nuts.
Yeah.
It was crazy to have that win, and then did really, really well. Continued on, and we dropped one in a homecoming game that we shouldn't have dropped. Awful.
Trust me, I know the
bad.
feeling.
Yeah, bad.
My whole time here, I've never won a homecoming game.
So here, you want to give you. This is probably bad for me too. I have never won a homecoming game either since playing to now.
Like in high school, I won, but my whole college career, all 5 years, never won one.
Never won one in high school. Never won one as a player in college. Never won one as a coach in college. Homecoming has been like a kryptonite for me that I've tried to get rid of.
Yeah.
Part of it was scheduling.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? You play. You're playing some big time teams, but that was a game we should have won. I mean, we were ahead and. But you have 6 turnovers.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, it's just what happens. But then you get to go to the playoffs. That was awesome. Playing Huntington College, right? Kind of around.
Them,
and it was kind of crazy. So I'll never forget. My mom and dad they went to the Golden Corral there in Montgomery and ate before the game, and because they talked to me after the game. There was some fan that was there telling them how they were going to smack up on us and that we weren't nothing. And Huntington was really good at the time. I think they were like the #1 offense in the country at the time, and they were doing some really good things. And we mollywopped them.
Yeah.
It was bad. Defense had a field day. I think we had a pick six, a scoop and score for a touchdown. I mean, we ran Statue of Liberty for a touchdown on offense. I mean,
everything worked.
Yeah, we kind of just had a field day with them, and it was a really good game. And my parents told me that after the game, I was like, well, I guess they weren't too accurate with that. But then the next week was really cool because now you're Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we didn't go home for Thanksgiving. We're on campus because we're practicing. Everybody else is gone, which was really kind of neat, you know.
Yeah.
And some of us are trying to go to – Coach would allow – if you lived within 2 hours of school, you could go home. So he'd let guys go. So, like, we were partnered up with guys that lived in Brookhaven and different areas, and we were going home with them and having Thanksgiving with their families and stuff like that. And then get on a plane and we go to Delaware and play in Delaware and play Wesley, which was really crazy because you get a chartered flight.
Y'all got a charter?
Yeah, because NCAA covers it. So we get a chartered flight, big, huge international plane. Got a ton of guys on the team that never flown before. They're freaking out. My left tackle at the time, I can still remember him gripping the seat and hearing the leather like grip from him freaking out. But then there's no airport in Delaware. I didn't know this.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, there's no big airport. So we ended up flying into Dover Air Force Base. Landing at the Air Force Base, got out, stayed at Crown Plaza in Delaware. Nice. Oh, it was awesome. Got our butts kicked. It was bad. It was cold.
Yeah.
I think when we got there, it was like 22 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Jeez.
No hot water after the game either. It's like we showered. It was all cold water. It was miserable.
Yeah.
But it was still a cool experience. You know, getting to go up there and see something different, and it was fun though, man. It was a blessing. And anytime I think you can get a chance to get a conference championship ring, things like that, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah, most definitely. Because I ain't.
No, I'm sorry. It happens. Look, I only got one. It makes you feel any better.
Yeah,
so.
But I mean, having one is better than none for sure. But you know, kind of just going off of that year, you know, y'all make the playoffs, y'all have all this success. Y'all, like, you know what I'm saying, reach the peak, get the ring. Did you think, like, this is like the new standard? Like, we're going to do this again and again?
I kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As I wanted it to be, but I also knew that we were going to struggle a lot. Yeah. We had lost a lot of players the next year. You know, and that was going to be tough. And I want to think we maybe finished out 500 that next year. And it was just tough. I mean, it's not every day you get a chance, you know, not every day do you get to beat the #3 team in the nation. Yeah. You know, Alabama doesn't get beat all the time, every time. You know what I mean? There's a reason for it. And that conference was really tough. Hardin-Simmons was a tough opponent. ETBU, super tough opponent. Louisiana College, super tough opponent. Yeah. You know, so it was just, I wanted it to be the standard. You know what I mean? I wish that was what I could say, but I also, you know, as we go through the next seasons, I also knew, man, this is everybody wants that.
Yeah.
And it's just, this was the time where it worked out in our favor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think our standards dropped after that. It's just didn't work out for us. Yeah. I think what a lot of people don't realize, man, there's a lot of pieces that have to go into the puzzle to being that successful outside of just want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody can want it. And everybody can work their butts off to get it. But there's still just some things that have to happen and happen at the right moments and drop and go your right way. You know, I don't know what happens if we don't win that game against Mary and Baylor. You know, that year, who knows? We might lose the rest of them.
Exactly.
You know, we might completely fall off the wagon. So there's things like that. You know, I don't think our standard dropped, but it just was tough, man. It's a tough conference to win in, tough conference to be successful in.
Yeah, because I know, like, for me mentally, like, I came in here, we go 5-5 those first 2 seasons. I'm like, all right, you know, like, we got some, like, we're going to elevate, get better each and every year, like, build on that 5-5. And then, like, the opposite ended up happening. Yeah. So, like, for me, like, it kind of wore on me mentally. It was like, what else do we need to do? So I was wondering, you know, did you have, like, those same, like, thoughts? Like, as a team, like, we're coming in, we're doing the same things we did when we were successful. Like, why is it not all adding up?
I think that's something we get locked in sometimes as players, is that we don't always understand, like, if we're doing the same and we're giving the same amount of effort and we're doing all these things, why are we not getting the same result? Well, there's variables that go with all that. You know what I mean? There's things that are out of our control. There's things with new coordinators, new styles, new things that happen, you know, new players that completely change the way things are happening. You know, I mean, you think back to some really great players, you know, like I think I go back to here with Millsaps, you know, with Juan Joseph, phenomenal player.
Yeah.
You know, guy wins the Connerly Trophy.
Yeah.
Only Division III guy to ever do it. that's
Special.
next level dude now. There's nothing
Special.
like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I go back to thinking of whenever I was there and at MC and some things, we had a phenomenal quarterback, special, did a lot of things, helped us a lot of ways. Then you lose that guy. And it wasn't that the next guy wasn't good, just wasn't that guy. You know what I mean? And that's hard when you lose that kind of piece. You know, we had a running back, Stephen Knight. I think he's playing rugby now overseas now. Phenomenal player, had a tons of looks in the NFL, and you know, because he ran a 4.4, he's 195 pounds, looked the part. Yeah. But you lose that guy. Now it's okay.
Got to find a new guy.
And those guys don't walk around every day. You know what I mean?
True.
So
especially not at this level.
Yeah. So and I think what it is, what you got to really lock in on is be happy with what you got, and just and when you have something, like, let's use it. You know what I mean? Because there's no guarantee you have it again. Yeah. There's nothing that says, hey, we're going to have, you know, we're not in the world of Alabama where we have money and have scholarships and have these things where we can just reload kids. Like, sometimes you just get lucky and you get the right mix of players and the right mix of coaches, and everything just pops that year, and those things change the next year. Yeah. There's not a guarantee that it happens. Doesn't mean the team doesn't work as hard. It just didn't happen that way this time.
Yeah, I understand. That just definitely, like, it's a lot that goes into winning, and, like, you can't control it all. You know what I'm saying?
Ton of variables. Yeah. People don't realize that, and we beat ourselves up as athletes. We beat ourselves up as coaches too, where we're always like, we always can play the what do they call it, the lazy boy quarterback, you know, where you sit back, oh, we could have done this different. Well, yeah, you're right. There's just so many variables that you don't always account for, and so when you understand that, like, you know, my thing has always been, did I feel like that I gave my best? Did I feel like I left anything out? No. And if I can say I did, then I did. That's all I can do. I can't control everything. I can't, you know, we can't. That's not us as players. That's not us as coaches. We can only do what we can do. And we can only control what we can control.
Yeah. And so, you know, after college, I know, you know, we spoke on the phone before this, like, you turned down playing professionally in Ireland. So kind of just what all, you know, not everybody, once they get the opportunity, just like you said with MC, at first, like, you get the call, like, hey, we want you. You said, I'm there. So, like, with Ireland, like, what made that situation different? Why didn't you take that opportunity and go there?
You know, for me, I realized that it was going to be a mean to an end. You know what I mean? I really understood who I was as a football player. I was, you know, some people might say differently. I was an okay football player. You know, I did the right things. I had some things that I did really well, but I knew that there was no road to end of that. You know what I mean? I had a wife at the time, or I had a fiance at the time. I had our first son, and I just was like, to move my kids, to move my family, to do all this, to do what? There was no NFL dream waiting on the other side. It wasn't like I was going to go over there and be Mr. Amazing, and then, oh, here's my shot. The Miami Dolphins have called me home. No, it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? So I just kind of got in the realization of it. I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this. I think I'm good. I just, you know, and at that point in time, I wasn't even sure, you know, I wasn't knowing what I was going to do at all. I really wasn't going to coach. I was going to go to PT school. And then I got into coaching kind of differently. But so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to move on with my life and start my family and do some things. You know, I was a poor college kid. I want to make money.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it's time for me to make money. Like, I'm tired of, you know, having mom and dad having to help me all the time. And, you know, it'd be nice to have my own beer money, believe it or not, that I made.
Yeah, and that's probably a good reason why you didn't go to Ireland.
Yeah, without doubt.
Went crazy.
Yeah, that's right. I might have got a brewery named after me or something, maybe. I don't know. What I realized for me, and where I kind of fell in love with it, was there was a lot of things that happened in my life, and a lot of it came through football. I got opportunities to do a lot of things that I never would have had a chance to do. And I had some really great coaches that were, at the end of the day, I mean, they were father figures for me, especially being so far away from home. I didn't have that. So, you know, I didn't have a guy, you know, I could call my dad, obviously, or call my mom, but it was weird. You know, you want to talk to somebody in person. Yeah. And so I had those coaches that were like that. And as I started coaching, I realized that that's really what coaching was. It was, it's coaching a sport. It's getting these guys doing football. It's all those things, but it's getting a chance to help guys grow and develop into men. Yeah. And, like, that's what I fell in love with. So I said, I think I'll stick around and do this. And then here I am now in 2023,
Yeah.
still doing it, and I never looked back.